would like to now ask Frank Pulio to come forward and bring greetings from the North Superior Workforce Planning Board. Frank is the co-chair of business for our board. Frank.
Thank you, David, and good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us in what we call a hands-on type of forum and approach to workforce development, which to us means bringing together industry, educators, and all the different planning, like David said, the process that we in terms of bringing the workforce together, that's our job. And jokingly, we call it what we do, the harmony of workforce development. So that long-standing little joke, but we do try to bring people together. And as you know, a couple of weeks ago, we did a major study that was released in terms of, while the executive summary was released a couple of weeks ago, the final report should be out in a couple of weeks, where we looked at the demand for what kind of occupation, what kind of jobs are going to be required in this emerging sector of our economy. And well, we know now what the occupations that are going to be in demand will be. The challenge is going to be to bring what kind of labor force we have in our region that will be able to meet those demands. So for that, we need you, the educators, we need the industry, we need to work together to make that happen. Because even though there seems to be many jobs available out there, the recent stats show that for every job opening, there are 3.3 people unemployed across Canada. It seems to be a paradox, and it's also occurring here in our region. There's a strong demand for certain jobs, but there's also high unemployment. So the challenge is going to be for us to bring those two together. That's what we refer to the e-harmony of workforce development. So thanks again for joining us, and let's make it happen, because this is a great opportunity that we cannot miss. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Frank. We're going to have a really whirlwind agenda coming up. This evening is going to be quite a lot of fun, I think. We have Barbara Green Parker from Mining Matters as our guest premier speaker to start off with. And then we have a panel. Our panel includes Barb Cote of CEO of North Star Drilling Limited, Suzanne Haylett of Community Liaison of Magna Metals, and John Hatton, Director of Training and Development, Confederation College. So we'll get to that in a minute. I would like to just introduce, some of you don't know what the board does. We are one of 21 boards across Ontario whose job is to identify and prioritize the skills and knowledge needs of our communities across Thunder Bay District through a collaborative labor market planning process. We have a number of directors here tonight, and I'd like to introduce them first. If you could, when I mention your name, could you please stand? Jason Thompson, Anne-Marie Wojciechowski, Terry McCurdy, and Frank Julio, and myself, Dave Farrell. I don't think there's anybody else. Thank you. I'd like to also, I think, Deborah Bukowski, are you with us? Deb, if you could just stand up. Deb is our employment and training consultant with the Ministry of Colleges and Universities. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'd like to thank again everybody. I know how hard it is to come out on these kind of nights, and it's a pleasure to have you here. I'd like to ask Frank to come back up again to introduce our keynote speaker. Just as Frank comes up, I'll just let you know the agenda a little bit. We'll do this, and at about 6 o'clock, we'll have our panelists do their talk, and then we'll have a little bit of a break after the panel discussion, and then we'll do our round tables, and then a plenary just after that. And we should have you out here by around 8:30 or just after 8:30.
Thanks, Dave. Barbara Green Parker, Manager of Aboriginal Education and Outreach Programs of Mining Matters. Barb has been with Mining Matters since 2007, when she was hired as the Aboriginal Education Specialist. Graduate of UOT, Centennial College, and got her teaching degree from Nipissing University in North Bay. Barb now works with teachers, students, and the public to share the exciting world of earth science, including the information about the wealth of career opportunities in the mining sector. Her current role as manager of the area, which includes hiring a team of 5 educators for the summer, delivering Aboriginal youth summer programs, and traveling through Canada. Please join me in welcoming Barbara.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me tonight. It's wonderful to be here, and it's wonderful to see this level of interest to come and be involved and talk about employment opportunities in the sector. I've actually just come from the Prospectors and Developers Association of Canada convention in Toronto, which is the largest mineral exploration convention in the world. And we topped over 30,000 people there that came from 120 different countries. And I must tell you, it's an exciting sector to be in. There's a wealth of opportunities in the sector. Everybody's feeling very, very optimistic. And so I feel very honored to be able to come to Thunder Bay and talk about what's going on in your region, as well as opportunities in the future. So I thought what I'd do is I'd take the next 20 minutes or so, and we could just talk generally about the mining sector and how this is going to be important for you. Before we do that, I would just love to know, in this group, how many of you are teachers? Oh, that's a good show. That's great. And how many of you are students? Great. That's wonderful. And how many of you are actually from the mining sector? Well, that's wonderful too. All right. So, what I'd like to do first is I want to remind everybody that the importance of the mining sector to our lifestyle is key. As we sit here enjoying this gorgeous meal and look around this room, in fact, anything that is not grown is a mined product. So as you are picking up your fork and eating off your plate or drinking from your glass, these are all a result of the mining sector. And much of the public doesn't understand the connection between the two, that even those things that are grown are in fact requiring mining products in order to harvest them, transport them to market, and get them to where we are actually purchasing them every day. So why is that important? Well, it's important because it means that our lifestyle is based on the success of that sector. We are in fact 40 billion contributor to the Canadian economy. And as a result of that, we recognize that having a strong mining sector in our country is key to our continued success. Not only the things that we eat, but obviously we enjoy watching TV, we get our information from that. And as we look around this room, further to that, our walls are made of gypsum. What I was going to do is I was going to hand out some raw materials to you tonight, but I think in light of the fact that you're still finishing dinner, we'll forgo that. But the gypsum in our walls, or the iron ore that's part of our steel that makes up this building, are all important components. And just recognizing that connection will really drive home this idea that in order for us to enjoy what we do and to satisfy that workforce demand, we need to have a good mining sector. It employs over 400,000 Canadians, and that means that there's opportunities. The Thunder Bay area is incredibly rich with opportunity. As you can see from the handout that's on your table, the Ring of Fire is ready to blast off. Everybody familiar with the Ring of Fire, I'm sure, here in Thunder Bay. It's an incredible chromite and huge world-class deposit that has been discovered in the James Bay lowlands, and it promises to be a big demander of great paying jobs. And what's important to recognize in the mining sector is that there's 120 careers within it. So to encourage students to go into the trades, there is going to be an enormous shortfall. An electrician, a plumber, a heating and ventilation specialist, they're needed in the mining sector. And in order to build these amazing properties that are going to harvest the minerals from the earth, whether it's a open pit or whether it's an underground operation, still requires these 120 careers. So the mining sector specifically is in high demand for future opportunities. We're the third largest diamond producer, and we're the top producer in the world of uranium and potash. And as we all know, China and India continues to grow exponentially in their numbers. Their level of their lifestyle wants to replicate what we enjoy here, and so that means that they need lots of steel to build their buildings and their cars, and they want TVs and their iPods and computers, and that all takes raw materials to do it. And Canada, hopefully we're going to be the one who will supply that. The mining sector of today is a very holds it extremely important to be environmentally responsible. And what's key about this is there may be some people who feel that it's a dark, dangerous, and dirty job. But in fact, our modern mining practices are state-of-the-art and very in line with being responsible. People who do business in this sector now, if they are not very successful. These very stringent regulations from the government ensure, as science recognizes that there are things that must be done in order to ensure future safety. An example of that would be, in the early days, they actually thought that it was a good thing to use something like sulfides, a type of rock, could be used as road beds, and they would lay it as the gravel. But then they realized that as water and oxygen reacted with that particular rock, that it was not a good thing. So then they had to take it all back. There have been things in the past that have not worked out in the past, but now we look back at those mistakes, we go back and clean them up, and environmental responsibility, social responsibility is key to doing business in the sector now. Social responsibility is very much a part of what I'm doing now. I have the great honor of traveling. I've been requested by 29 different communities, First Nation communities around Canada, and I will be working for 5 days with students and the community to talk about the importance of the mining sector. And typically what we do, and I see Matt Lawrence is here, I started this gig, so to speak, initially working with Matt and his group of First Nation Youth Employment Program participants and his staff, and we went in and did a 5-day program, and it starts with the introduction of earth science, looking at rocks and minerals and getting a sense of the differences between them, right through to, at the end, a visit to Lac des Îles platinum and palladium mine, so that the participants could actually see how does this all translate. A trip through the mill puts it into real life terms. So now I'm doing it 29 different communities throughout Canada. I'm going to be hiring students to come and compose that team and an assistant. So if it's something that interests you, I'm very interested in taking your resume, and hopefully you can come and enjoy this exciting job that I'll be doing. I spoke about state-of-the-art technology. I had the incredible opportunity to meet the the president and CEO of Penguin, who's state of the art. He's developed little robots that actually travel through areas. They're in Chile right now, and they've got these robots that are all GPS connected, and they will command them to go for 10 hours for kilometers and kilometers through tunnels. And the spin-offs of this, something like in Toronto when they started to build the foundation for a condominium, and they mistakenly went in and wrecked the culvert that was responsible. They asked the city, what's that for? And the infrastructure down there, I guess, is so old. They didn't know what it was connected to. So now they want to have these little robots go through the tunnels and map them all out. So these are the kinds of things. Remote mining is definitely here to stay. People in Toronto can mine in Sudbury. People who enjoy having fun with joysticks, with monitors set up and little robots that are going along. It's a reality, and this is what's so exciting about the sector. Leading edge technology. So as we look at some of those photographs, and we're looking at the machines that are involved, obviously the mining sector, whether it's a pit operation or underground, has to come up with innovative ways of operating. And something like a haul truck is an enormous piece of equipment, and when we go to Lac des Îles, the youth just love to stand, and their heads barely get to the inside of the rim, it seems. And those machines are magnificent. Women in our industry are highly sought after. In fact, women are the best haul truck drivers in the industry because they're so careful with their machines, and all those things reduce operating costs. And when you think that you could drive one of those machines that it's 3 stories up just to get up into the cab, and you're hauling those enormous amounts of weight up and down through the pit, it's something. Well, I want to do it at one point. I don't think I'm going to, but I do want to do it. So the mining cycle is a really important understanding of how this all comes into play. There's 4 components to the mining cycle. There's nothing can happen unless people go out onto the land and find something that we need to use. And that's called the exploration phase. The exploration phase stands almost unto itself. It is so full of activity with prospectors and line cutters, geophysicists, geologists. These people have to go out, they have to find the deposit. And there's only 1 in 1,000 where they go out and find something interesting, like a rusty rock or a quartz vein that looks like it may have something of value in it. And then of that, 1 in 1,000 of those are actually going to end up in a mine. So exploration, you can see, is something that must go on and go back, and with new technology, they're now going back to what they thought were mined out areas, and they go back and look for the gold deposits because the improvement in technology allows them to find it. We can go deeper looking into the Earth's crust, and that means that there's continued activity. So in remote areas, that means that people are flying into the area, they're using the services, they're staying in the hotels, they're eating the food, they're hiring the helicopter pilots, and going out onto the land to do that. The next phase, if they're lucky enough to find a deposit that's economic and is going to be profitable. And I want to say that in the exploration phase, you cannot proceed in any other phases until the money, the permits, and the entire plan for closure is in place. Really, really important to understand that about the mining cycle. You can't just start going ahead with actually mining the minerals until you have everybody's agreement, Ontario government, Ministry of Environment, First Nation communities or communities located, and the money set aside with an approved plan in place. So development is the second phase. Of course, they have to build the site, whether it's a tailings pond, build the mill, sink the portal for a ramp or a shaft, as they're doing in Lac des Îles. Lac des Îles has an underground and an above ground operation. We were fortunate enough to see the pit in operation, and now they're sinking a shaft, so it's more economic for them to go direct. After they've built it, then they do the operation. So they're actually extracting the materials, and then finally, and most important, is the closure and site rehabilitation plan. And as I said, you don't ever think about that stage until you've considered all those in the advanced exploration stage. So as I said, there's 120 options to choose from within the sector. And when you think about building small cities, all the people that need to run a small city, that's what the mining sector and this needs. So those students who want to be a lawyer, want to be a financial advisor, those are all needed. Downtown Toronto in the last 5 days is crawling with investment advisors and people from all over the world who are coming here to talk about Canada and our mining sector, which, by the way, we are the world leaders. I did not come into this. I came in as a teacher to do this job. I come from healthcare and I come from education. And I gotta tell you, I am still wowed by the mining sector. Not only the quality of the people that are in it, but also just the magnitude of it. And it seems to me that they've humbly gone along doing their job, nobody really giving them much attention. And when they get together, they're just the most incredible group of people. So if it's something that interests you, I'd say come join us because it's a really fun thing to do. We talked about this. So those small cities that need to be planned, the chef, the cook, the administrative assistants, the mechanical supervisors, the camp managers, the helicopter, the fixed wing pilots, the truck drivers, the plumbers, the geologists, the lab technicians. These are only some of the many and exciting jobs, high paying, highest paid sector in the Canadian economy. Accommodation provider, kitchen staff, janitor, human resources manager, plant supervisor, environmental coordinator, crane operator, driller, demolition expert. And you're going to have the great pleasure to hear Barbara Court talk about the drilling program. Drillers right now are in extremely high demand. People such as the work for Barb and her whole philosophy in this in her job is key, because if you can get a good driller in that exploration phase who can get the job done, easy on the equipment, high performance from the team, then of course these are the things that need to happen in order for us to continue to be successful. Security guard, HR administrator, financial manager, IT supervisor, foreman, blaster, loader operator, electrical engineer, metallurgical engineer. I'm telling you, it's every kind of program that you can imagine. And these are within those subsets. So you can imagine a geologist is going to be needed through all 4 phases of the mining sector. And you will see these occur again and again. So when they're talking about the development of the Ring of Fire, and they have to put a corridor, whether it comes from the south, or it comes from the west in the Pickle Lake district, they're going to have to decide, is it going to be rail, is it going to be road? All the spin-offs from that as well need to be addressed. So what's in it for you, or what's in it for your students? This is a key question that you need to look at and really think about. You're going to be part of the highest paid sector in the Canadian economy. A great salary is going to be part of that. Travel. My goodness, normally I would bring my earth. I got my earth ball there, and I kind of hug my earth ball, and I'll spin it around and I'll say, you know, this chromite deposit that has been found right here in your backyard is what the biggest one was in South Africa and in Russia. That's where the mineral was. Chromite's necessary for steel. Steel, as you know, is like critical to our building materials. So now that you have it right here, it's going to make an enormous difference. State-of-the-art technology. That remote mining is amazing, but it's only one really cool thing that they do. They come up with new ideas all the time to figure out how to find the minerals and how to get them out of the earth. Career advancement. I started out as Aboriginal educational specialist. I'm now a manager, and I'm going to have a team of 5. That's just my little story in 5 years. As you go to and learn about all the different careers, you can actually see that there's all kinds of places, and they're doing deals downtown Toronto all the time. If you're good at your job, people are looking for you. Teamwork. They'll open their doors, they'll be saying hello to one person, and somebody else will open the door, and they haven't seen them in 20 years. They're very collegial. You work as a team, whether it's on the site or you worked earlier or you went to school. The students are all still good friends. So it's a very, very nice working environment. It's a dynamic work environment. There's always changes. Mining is a temporary land use. However, as they continue to find new lenses in properties and they expand, it's always a changing environment. And there's a huge range of opportunities as we discussed. I want to tell you that this number is well below what the projected requirements are needed within the industry. Over the next 10 years, the last great event that I attended here, we had Barb Kirby from the Mining Industry Human Resource Council, and she was saying that up to 141,000 workers will be needed in the sector over the 10 years. This is very conservative numbers that we're looking at here. One thing is for sure, the success of the industry will be predicated on the fact that we have to get skilled workers into it to do the job. The success of the sector is dependent upon that. So how do you do that? Well, we have the most amazing, I went to a Lakehead University breakfast. Their programs are expanding. They are coming up with really innovative ways to satisfy and draw and retain students and attract Aboriginal youth into their programs. Confederation College is working with us as well over the summer. We have these great relationships. So right here in Thunder Bay, you've got great training programs that are available to you and your students. But when you look across Canada, there are 25 colleges and 9 universities that offer incredible programming. So if that's something that students want to go away to school and go into a great program, geology and the earth sciences, mining engineering, that's all available to them. Let's not forget the apprenticeship programs. Those students who want to go out and start earning a wage right off the hop, that's available to them too. And skilled trades is a very sought after, very respected, and we need to think about getting people thinking about really being proud of the work that our plumbers and electricians, our auto mechanics, all those people are doing, because it's a really, really important component. So basically, to sum up, I just want to tell you that here in Thunder Bay, which is really starting to feel like coming home when I come up here, because I'm here so often, I must tell you, I love coming to your city. I love experiencing the energy, and I'm really, really happy about the things that are coming in the future to this area. It doesn't matter if we're talking about the Rainy Resources property down the street called Black Hawk, or if we're talking Osisko, who just won an award for their incredible discovery, and they have Hammond Reef in that area as well. You've got the Goldcorp, Musselwhite, and Red Lake mines. Red Lake is the highest ore deposit, the richest ore deposit in Canada. You've got Barrick at Hemlo and Marathon. You've got the Ring of Fire going to start up very soon. Well, it started. Obviously, it's in exploration. It started and it's happening, and you have all these really, really exciting things that are right here, ready to just bust out. Of course, Lac des Îles is is a favorite of mine because they have been so supportive of our program. So right here, you have these great properties, you have these great operations, and you have these great companies that are looking for skilled and people who are interested in coming on board and being part of the team. Are there any questions? All right.
Thank you so much, Barbara. That was wonderful. I just want to remind you that we have a little gift on the table up here and a cup for you after, so please, and we may get a chance to ask some more questions. So during the evening, as we go along, at the end of our panel discussion, we'll have some questions, and I'm sure Barbara would love to answer some questions if you have some directed to her then. So now, could I ask our panelists to come forward? And they are Barb Cote at North Star Drilling, Barb Court, sorry, Suzanne Harlett, and John Hatton. Hallett? I'm challenged. English is my second language, and it's my only one. And my only one, so. So we have about an hour for this, and we can have some fun because these are. I'm almost getting to feel at home with at least two of the panelists, and John I've known for years. So, but Barb Court is a feisty mother of three, who pretty well has fought against a lot of odds to be here today. After she lost her husband en route to Thunder Bay, she became the first female CEO of a highly competitive, male-dominated drilling business. Despite everything, Barb has remained a model of success and leadership figure to those in and around Thunder Bay. She is the only woman in North America to manage and own not one, but two drilling companies. Barb is developing new partnerships all the time, and her companies are Cobra Drilling and North Star Drilling. So welcome, Barbara. And I'll introduce all three of them, and then we'll have Barb start. John Hatton is the Director of Training and Development at Confederation College. John has a master's degree in organizational development. I'm not sure what a certified DDI facilitator is, but maybe John will let us know. Kind of interesting. Okay, it's kind of interesting. But he has worked with numerous groups on strategic planning, business improvement strategies. His academic background is enhanced by his practical management experience in various leadership roles. John has a wealth of experience with businesses and groups to improve performance of those organizations. Some of the clients that John has are the prominent organizations within Thunder Bay region. He is also actively involved in community service as president of Big Thunder Sports Park, chair of the Thunder Bay Physicians Recruitment and Retention Council, and chair of the Thunder Bay Dragon Boat Race Festival. Susan Haylett is presently employed as Community Liaison Officer at Magna Metals Limited and has worked in various roles of the mining industry. And this is kind of interesting, from field mapping to owning her own small exploration personal business to prospecting. Wow, that's pretty neat. She will soon relocate to Sudbury to act as the First Nations Mineral Information Officer for the Resident Geologist Program with the Ministry of Northern Development and Mines. She has studied at the University of Political Science and Geology. Susan is an active member of local cross-country ski and cycling community. We'll have to talk about that. And is a performing musician, so you're right there because I can't sing. And she sits on the board of directors of Northwestern Ontario Prospectors Association. So welcome, panelists. Sure, yeah, Barbara. So just to, Barb, if you'd like to start, we have about 10 or 15 minutes each. We have an hour for this, so about 10, 15 minutes each. Would you like to start off?
Hi, I'm Barb, and I'm a gold digger. I own North Star Drilling and Cobra Drilling, as you see. I'm going to show you some pictures and give you a little idea of what I do. Okay, we drill holes in the ground for the mining companies. As you've seen, there's 4 phases to 4 areas of mining. The first one is exploration, and this is where I come in. And the only way you're going to know what's in the ground is if you drill a hole. So this is the beginning. This is when we set up the drill hole. The mining company tells us where to drill, how deep to drill, and what angle to drill. And they use those stakes. This is what we do. This is the rock, and that's what it looks like. And from that rock, they can tell if there's gold or any kind of mineralization. Now, I guess, can everybody read that? I can't. Anyway, I was at the PDAC, or PDAC as everybody calls it, so it's a little rough. It was a good week. Right, Harold? The drilling industry has gotten so big. We came here in about 5 years ago, and you heard the story. And I came here with 3 kids, 2 dogs, 2 cats, and 2 drills. I am now up to 11 drills. We are now starting a program in Dominican Republic. We have a 40,000 meter contract over there. And this is what we do. As working in the mining industry, we travel, we get to meet lots of wonderful people, and we look for minerals. Here we underestimated. I could see the 60,000. I could see numbers, but I can't see the letters. Now this is when we drill a hole. This is a tube, and coming out of it is the rock. This is the first time you get to see what we've drilled. And a lot of times people ask me, do your drillers buy stock? Well, they're not geologists, so they don't know. So sometimes it looks good, and it's not gold. But anyway, it's a wonderful industry. I was a nurse, and I got into this about 20 years ago. And it was a lot of fun, exciting, because when you drill, most of the time, as Barb said, 1 out of 1,000 drill holes, you hit something. And then 1 out of 1,000 of those is when you hit. And recently, we just did a small drill program in the Scriber area. And a friend called me up and said, can you drill 1,000 meters? And I said, sure, I have a little window of opportunity. My drill wasn't busy. And didn't we hit? And it was one of the big talks at the PDAC, because the stock went from 10 cents to $2, which I didn't buy into. But I got a phone call about a month ago, and they said, we need a drill. And I said, I got one. It's going to be coming due in 2 weeks. And it's amazing because, like I said, I can keep buying drills, but it's busy all the time. And I need guys all the time. And drilling is not an easy job. It's not for everybody. And I go through a lot of guys. I try to have a talk with them saying it's hard work. You work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. You're away from home. You work for 4 weeks, and then you're home for 2 weeks. I'm going to have the schedule up here. So like I said, it's not an easy job. You're cold, you're wet, or you're hot, and you got those big spruce bugs, those real ugly things. Yeah, they're there in the summer. And but it's for the guys. When I look at my crew, I look at hardworking guys. A lot of them are fathers and husbands and great people. It was, did anybody see Armageddon? Well, some of those guys are my crew. They're rough and they're tough and they're mean and they're ex-cons and they're alcoholics and they're tough. But I keep them in line. I've got, right now with the 11 drills, I have over 60 employees. And since moving to Thunder Bay, I decided that I was going to only hire local. And when I came here, I went to one of the suppliers and they told me, we're a forestry town, we're not mining. I said, oh, that's too bad. So I had to go and bring in people from other provinces, and I really don't like doing that. So then I changed my planning, and I said, I'm going to go and I'm going to hire the helpers locally. So I went into Greenstone, and with Confederation College, we started a helpers program. And with Ken Stevens. And I went every 2 weeks. I went to the drill, and I was rough on those guys. I said, you're walking too slow, you got to go faster. And we came out with, I don't know how many helpers, but I would watch the guys, and I could tell who would make a helper and who wouldn't. And then I'd hire them. And out of all those guys that went through that course, I hired probably most of them. A lot of them said, no, this is not for me, like it's way too hard. The ones that I kept, I have a few that have turned into foremans. I have quite a few that are drillers now, because the only way you can become a driller is if you're a really good helper, and it doesn't happen overnight. So the guys all, once they come on, you have to give them some honor, because it's not an easy job. And I do, because these guys deserve, they're the ones that, alongside the geologists and the junior mining companies, are the ones that find the mines. And they're the lost, forgotten boys. And they've changed. I'm very tough on my guys. People ask me if I do drug testing, and I said I don't, because a lot of the other companies, they do the drug testing before they're hired, and then when they're hired, they do whatever they want. My employees call me mom, so I know everything, and I'm after them. Anyway, today I seen one of my employees at the airport, and I looked at him, and his wife just had a baby. And in a matter of 6 months after working, he bought a house in Thunder Bay, he got married, and he's a daddy now. And I said, look, in 1 year, what has happened to your life? And this is what I promote. I don't, if they're haywire, they don't last with me. But a lot of these young kids coming out of school, they come with the attitude, I'm going to go as a driller, and I'm going to make over $100,000, because that's what they make. My main foreman makes $190,000 a year. So the pay's really good. The education, well, now I'm at the point where I believe in education. I think education is a wonderful thing. It's not required for diamond drilling. You have to be able to count in 3, because our rods are 3 meters, so they have to count in 3, and you need a driver's license. So those are the couple of things that we need. But I also need my guys to be safe. It's a job that can kill people. It's a job that they have to be responsible and be leaders and not followers, and be able to be away from mommy and girlfriends and everything else. I'll continue with some pictures, because I'm sure a lot of you have never seen a diamond drill. And I think somewhere here there's one. We'll just get on. Am I going back? Oh, wrong way. Now this is what's required according to the ministry. Before they can even get on a drill, they need their first 5 modules of Common Core. They need first aid, WMIS, propane. And the reason why propane is because in the wintertime, you always need water to drill. So in the wintertime, water gets cold, it freezes. So they need to know the propane, and Jason is one of our instructors. Did I tell you they blew up one of my pump shacks? Last week. Okay. Fall arrest, because some of the drills, we have towers that are about 20 feet high, and they have to go up there. This is Dave in the picture. And Dave started, he was working in the forestry industry, and he got, I think it was Northwood or one of the mills in town. He got laid off. So he started working as a helper. Dave is now my foreman. He's second in command, I would say, second or third. And he's done fantastic. He's come a long way in 4 years. Here's another thing, physically fit. Being able to adjust to displacement, being far away from home, and a driver's license, because nobody has a driver's license. Oh, I can look on there. Okay. There's my zero tolerance for drugs and alcohol. I used to be a nurse, so I can tell. This is the controls on the drill. So they stand there and they look at the controls. That's what the driller does. The helper does everything else. So what I tell the guys is, when they start out in the helper course, I said, the only time that you guys are making money, I said, is when the driller's drilling. If the driller's doing anything other than drilling, you're not making any money. Neither am I. But they make a bonus. So for every foot that they drill, they get $1 a foot bonus. So they get their wage, and then they get a bonus on top of it. We have satellite phones, and they have, because before, years ago, when I started this in 20 years ago, there was nothing. They were out in the bush and they were done. We couldn't get a hold of them until they came out. So this is their rotation, 24/7, 28 days on, 14 days off. I supply the room and board and all the accommodations, and I get home cooked meals, and I buy them big screen TVs, and I even bought them PlayStation so that they can keep busy. There's one of my drills, and they're in that for 12 hours. That's a remote camp. I actually think that's your camp. Yeah, it's a really nice camp. And this is one of my guys. That's Sweat. No. This is when they move the drills. The tower's up, but there's the foreman's in the dozer. But that's what they do. Look, they move that, and they go from location to location. And I thought it was a good shot to put in there so you get an idea. And there's one of the graduates from the helper program, and he's taken a break, and he is now a driller. There's a tower. That's 20 feet up in the air. And he's got to go there and pull the rods. So there you go. That's my story about the drilling industry. Any questions? Then I'm done.
Thanks, Barb. That was great. John, no, he's just setting you up here, so just a second. Retirement fund.
It's always tough to follow Barb because no one's quite that exciting, but I was also at PDAC, and that's why my voice is a little gravelly too. But one of the t-shirts I saw there, and I've got to get Barb to make it for her drillers, and it said, if I wanted an easy job, I would have been a crab fisherman. And it is a tough job. What I'm going to try to do today, and I'll flip through some of the slides so I don't copy the stuff that Barb and Barb have already done, and I know that Susan has done as well. So what I'm going to try to do is just give you an idea of the college's involvement. We are new as an institution at mining training. We're trying to meet the demands that are coming up, and there are other great organizations that do stuff. But this will give you an idea of what we do now, and again, from an educational perspective, where we think we're going with this. So I'll skip over the other stuff, but really what my part of the college does, we don't do normally the post-secondary stuff, which is the 2 to 3 year programs. We try to meet business and industry needs, customized programs, and we tend to be quicker off the mark. It's easier to do the stuff the way we do it rather than going through approvals, etc., with ministries, but it helps us. The other thing that's critical about our model, we call it training to jobs. So in other words, we don't want to engage in any kind of training unless we think there's a job at the end. I mean, there's nothing more frustrating than spending money and time on a course and someone saying, well, that's not nice. And I look at, and all of us have gone through that cycle. The other piece that, is important about this is that the other, which is critical, is we have to be in contact with industry. We have to know what Barb wants. If she doesn't like what we're doing, she's not going to hire our people, as well as, exploration companies like Magma, mining companies like Barrick or North American Palladium. So keeping in touch with, thank you, with the job market is important. And then we go from there. But it's all about jobs. And again, that's typical of a college. But again, we're really working hard at making connections. And some of the next slides will show you that. The other thing is principles. And yes, believe it or not, we do have some. But partnerships are critical, as I said. It has to be needs-based, and that's based on data. So in other words, Barb referred to the MIR study, the Mining Industry Human Resource Council, that lets us know what jobs are going to be required. We look at the North Superior Workforce Planning Board and also the companies. You also mentioned corporate social responsibility, and if you're not into that now, get into it, because it's important. It has to happen within the mining sector. PDAC has a wonderful program called E3, which is about environmental stewardship, human relations, all that stuff. So we try to do anything we do around everything from cultural awareness, Aboriginal sensitivity, all that stuff, as well as environment. So it's really important for us. We mentioned about drilling. Now, you may not want to be a driller for the rest of your life, but where do you go from there? So we try to look at what we call pathways, so that you do have some skills that are transferable to other skills. And we've had some of our drillers who might want to do that for a couple of years, make some dollars, but then say, I might want to get into being an environmental technician or a geotech or something like that. So pathways is important. This second to last one to me is and you people in the education profession know this, it's the right person for the right job. And that's in our assessment component. So just because you can make whatever amount of money, if you don't like it, there's no harder thing than making $100,000 and hating every minute of it. So making sure that we do assessments, aptitude testing, to make sure that you're going to get a job that you're going to enjoy and be good at. And the other thing, the foundation skills that we try to integrate in all our programs, that people do have to have, in our jargon, essential skills around literacy, numeracy, even though, for some jobs it may not be as required, but when Barb said, you have to know three, how many threes, well, sometimes people can't do that. So basic literacy is important, and we really think that's critical, especially if you want to move on. So that's a part of our model. Barb's already gone through this. This is an interesting slide, and I think you probably have that on the brochure that's on your table. It's from the ministry. But if you look at this point here, if you don't have grade 12, only 5% of the people in the industry can get jobs like that, and that's probably decreasing. What you need more of is at least a diploma or a degree. Lakehead University runs a wonderful geology program. It was fascinating. At our booth at PDAC, we had companies and countries coming trying to recruit the fourth-year geology students right there, because they are in demand, and it's nice to be associated with them. But the college programs, such as our environmental tech program, the trades, all those things, those are skills you need, and high school is a little less. But the message is, get an education, no matter where. I think everyone's heard this. I'm not telling you any new revelation here, but it's really important to stress that, say some students who want to drop out before grade 12, not a good idea. Hang in there, get your grade 12, at least you can do something beyond that, and then move ahead. I had to get Harold's release for this picture. This is at PDAC, but what the point is here is, again, I talked about partnerships. This is our booth in partnership with Lakehead, but you can see Ed and Peter Collins from Fort William First Nation, Jennifer Charles from Lakehead, the mayor, and Harold. What was really exciting in my mind is about those people took the time, and the mayor did a wonderful job with Harold and John Mason from the CEDC, about going to every company that is involved in the mining sector here, including Kevin, North American Palladium, Barrick, Noront Resources, Cliffs, all those companies, to thank them for being part of the city and encouraging them to be a bigger part of the city. So the presence there is critical for our educational institutions, but you can rest assured that the city is doing everything they can to make sure that those companies know they're welcome here, and that's part of what Harold was doing. A lot of hands were being shaken, and just the connection, the perception was really really important. So that was what would happen there. We mentioned about supporting the mining industry, and this is a program we ran with Barrick in Marathon, Barrick Gold, and we did it in conjunction with the Mining Industry Human Resource Council and an organization called BEAR, which is an Aboriginal environmental group. So again, we can't do these things without those kind of partnerships. And you know, I've stressed that, I'll say it time and time again, but this is something the high schools are beginning to do a better job at connecting with the colleges, universities, and companies. These are not Barb's guys, these are our wussy guys before they become real drillers. This is, after Barb gets a hold of them, you know, but this is the screening. We make sure we have a camp, we replicate a real drilling camp as best we can. Out near Upsala, Barb has been out there and talked to the guys. Again, we can't do the programs unless we have advice and support from companies like North Star Cobra Drilling, Major Drilling, Orbit Garant, and others, that they come out and will talk to our people. And also, when they graduate from the course, they're given an opportunity to interview for jobs, and some have decided after the course they don't want to do it for a living. They take their high-vis coveralls and go home, and others get into the job. And what our instructors tell them, who are both ex-drillers, is that go through one cycle first, see if you like it, but give it a shot. And then once they get it and get used to it, it is a wonderful career. If again, right person for right job, this is specific. So we've, again, with the help, that was one of Barb's drills that the college has purchased. We use that. It's a hands-on program, and if you think about learning and education, you can't teach a driller in a classroom, right? They've got to get their hands dirty or wet or whatever, and this is what we do for 20 days straight. They can't phone their girlfriends or go home, and they stay there. Last month, we graduated our first woman driller. We've been trying to, and that was wonderful. But again, it's with trepidation, because you've got accommodation issues. Can she do the job? And she was one of the top students. And she's working for a company called Gold Canyon Resources, doing drilling up around Cat Lake. So that's a success story for us, but we threatened her if she didn't succeed. Trouble. Line cutting, someone mentioned that, and that's in the early exploration stages again. Line cutting, which is again a safety issue, but also some technical skills around GPS, GIS programs. So that's a program we run. Here's a group that we train through the Ojibways of Lake Nipigon. And this is again the corporate social responsibility, where they said, we don't want to train our band members to be just line cutters. We want them to start their own business. So they're not working for someone else. So they run their own line cutting company out of there with people we train. And part of that training was a little bit of an entrepreneurship business program. So doesn't always work, but this one did, and they now have their own line cutting company, and they hire out to some other companies. We run something called the First Nations Youth Ranger Program, and this gets back to youth and high school kids, so you get them exposure, and again, a wonderful thing. This, you probably recognize, Barb. This is the Mining Matters Program, which was held at Confederation College this summer. What's interesting about that, you've got the people from Norant Resources, Glenn Nolan on your left, now the president of PDAC, who's the Aboriginal Affairs Coordinator with Norant, Paul Semple, one of the senior executives, Scott Jacobs, another Aboriginal coordinator, and Leanne Hall, the HR manager. She's the gal who hires people for Norant Resources. We better be friends with her, and make sure that we provide programs that she likes. So this was great support from Norant Resources and the program, and you probably know some of those students and where they're from, Barb. So it gives them exposure to the business. It educates them and lets them know what's going on. Kevin, you probably recognize that place. That's North American Palladium, where we're trying to work with some of the people there around jobs and the continuous growth of that organization and their association with Gull Bay First Nations and some of the other places around them. This is again a partnership, part of our drilling program. We do some helicopter training, and this interesting Whisk Air, which helps us out with this. That helicopter, they call it affectionately the Harry Potter helicopter. That was owned by J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter books, and again, their growth from 2 helicopters to 8 helicopters just because of the mining industry. And so this is wouldn't you love to put drilling equipment in that? It's got nice gray leather seats, and well, it used to. So we take our guys, and again, hands-on, show them all about how to, and because a lot of the drilling jobs, you do helicopters. Another gentleman that you hear about a lot in the industry, the white shirt, Henry Wedelainen from Bend Lake Iron. We ran a geophysical prospectors course on his property in that Atikokan area. So other things, the trades that Barb mentioned, about. And I threw these in and it just, as Barb said, it amazes me the nature of this sector. It is very big, very impressive, but unique and different. And we talked about lifestyle. If you get into it, it's a global thing. And so I just took some ideas. At this PDAC conference, the booth from Peru, they're trying to attract. Canadians are known across the world for their mining expertise, the way they do things. And you can go anywhere. I was in South Africa this fall, and again, as a Canadian, you know, they thought I was a mining guy, so I was treated very well. I didn't want to change that opinion, but Peru, which is, again, all these places, mining has no borders. And again, you can tell students or your teachers is that if you want to travel, there are jobs, and there are people hiring like crazy there. India, all kinds of stuff going on there. Australia. The other thing which is interesting is diversity, and there is a National Women in Mining organization, and they had a great party that was advertised there. But Barb is starting up a Women in Mining group here in Thunder Bay, which is exciting because, you know, with geologists and mining engineers, everybody now drillers, equipment people. So it's a diversity, and it is changing. It isn't like the old male. It's male dominated still, but it's changing, right, ladies? I think say that. So the other thing, and I was just to show you this, I always throw this in. Again, the typical drill where that is, like at the middle of nowhere, but that picture is the Ring of Fire. So Barb talked about building a corridor for transportation, and that huge, wonderful chromite deposit, you have to get through that to get there. Now picture a railway or road, so they've got some challenges. And if the mine is supposedly, they're still using the date 2015, not sure how accurate that is, but it seems pretty ambitious to me with environmental First Nations issues and just technical issues, how they're going to get that stuff out of there. I forget how many bridges, etc. So that's kind of the business, but it's exciting because even if a mine doesn't happen there, there's all these businesses. I see people like Ken Boschkoff here from KBM Resources. There's all these businesses. Wire Rope, he used to be a forestry group. They're now the biggest supplier of drilling parts. So it's happened. There are companies we don't even know about, the helicopter companies. So it's creating jobs in all the sectors. So don't just think about jobs as miners, heavy equipment people. It's a very wide sector. And if you want to get into it, there's lots of people here. We're developing a really good resource in town, having people like Barb come to us and tell us about it. And again, if you're in a mine in northern Saskatchewan or the Arctic or South America or South Africa, it's kind of the same. Okay? Like that's, I don't know the feeling you get, but there's this camaraderie. I spent 2 days, 2 weeks ago at Barrick Mine doing some management training, and what an exciting group of people. Highly skilled, motivated, great teamwork, and it's a great industry. And I say I'm learning. Transferable skills we talked about in all the other jobs. So if you get for everything from power generation, that's a huge issue with the mine. Mine construction, road and rail construction, forestry. One other quick point, we talked about technology. These are something the college is negotiating with this company in South Africa called 5DT. There are other companies that they produce mining equipment simulators, and we have an aviation simulator over at the airport, but these are just incredible. And the idea is that they are safer, so you have less incidents, safety incidents. They increase your productivity because you can learn quicker, and also they have less wear and tear on equipment. So the mines that I visited there said basically, it's a no-brainer. They pay back themselves in a year to 2 years. So we're trying to at least find out about these to make a decision, to have something as a center of excellence of some sort in Thunder Bay where people can learn how to drive scoop trams, graders, loaders, rock trucks, etc. And Barb, if you want to drive a rock truck, that's what that is. And when you're in it, it's very similar. So that's the kind of technology we're trying to keep ahead of the game in that area. So that's it for now. And so just so we can keep going, I'd be glad to answer questions after.
Thanks, Judd. Suzanne.
So I want to thank John and Barb Squared for doing my presentation for me. Because I think there's a lot of similar things that I could say, right? But I don't want to reinvent the wheel here. So I guess I'll take it back and tell you more my personal experience and tell you more chronologically how I grew into this industry from the high school experience to where I am right now. I'm going to be 28, so I've been in the industry for about 10 years or so now. In high school, I wasn't interested in sciences. I was a smart kid, but I just didn't care about math and science. I said, I'm going to go be a lawyer or something. I'll worry about science if I need it, but I said I didn't. I went to political science at Lakehead University, and I got a degree. and I was I was able to go to the Northwestern Ontario Prospector Symposium way back in 2004, and I was the AV person I ran the AV, and one person from the Ontario Geological Survey came up to me and said, "Hey kid, do you want to work for me for the summer and be a field assistant?" I was 19 at the time, and I said, "Sure, it's a lot better than waitressing." That was my introduction to the industry, and that summer I actually got to do all sorts of helicopter prospecting, and it ignited my interest in the industry just by chance. Well, it wasn't really chance, actually. My father was the president of the Northwestern Ontario Prospectors Association. So that's a whole other thing, is usually you know somebody in the industry to get into the industry. But if you meet us, right, we'll tell you about it, and you can get into it that way. In any case, so let's go back to 2004. I'm working for the OGS. I'm still doing my political science degree, but there's this spark in my head that's saying, this is really interesting. I really like this industry, but at that point, the economy was just starting to pick up. So I wasn't really thinking about it too much. Finished my degree, and then I went to University of Guelph. I was going to start a master's in political science. And I said, I don't want to be in the ivory tower. This isn't for me. I quit. I went and I worked for a geophysics company up in the Athabasca Basin, up in northern Saskatchewan, staking claims, flying in helicopters, working with IP surveys, being with an axe, and 10 guys line cutting, like crazy stuff in the winter, right? Crazy experience. And I loved it. I fell absolutely in love with the industry. I loved the traveling. I was young. And I said, I'm going to go get a geology degree. Came back to Thunder Bay. I also, at the same time, worked part-time, and I started my own little mining exploration company, personnel exploration company called My Next Connections. I was 23 years old. I said, I want more people to know about this industry, and there was an increasing shortage in personnel because the market was picking up. 2006, right? Increasing demand for people, not enough people to fill it. So we created this little online business where we had resumes submitted, and it picked up. So My Next Connections created business with Flaggate Exploration here in town, and with Sage Gold and some companies out in Vancouver, and we were able to do contracts and employ students with these companies. Anyways, the recession hit in 2008. At that point, I was working on geology, working for Flaggate Exploration. I got laid off. And this is something you got to recognize, is that if you're going to work in this industry, it is always a chance that you're going to lose your job due to market conditions. It's out of your control. So the most important thing for me, when I was getting into this industry, I said, how am I going to be transferable, and how are my skills going to be able to overcome market fluctuations, right? I had my political science in my back pocket. I had geology. Market started picking back up. In 2009, I was hired by Magma Metals. At that point, like I meant, 2009. I was just living out in Vancouver for the summer, sailing. Alan McTavish, exploration manager here in Thunder Bay, gives me a call and says, Suzanne, would you like to run our field mapping project? I want you to map 300 square kilometers of this new platinum project that we have, basically do a field survey of it. So me and the guy who found the project, Graham Wilson, this one peridotite boulder that he found ended up intersecting 710,000 ounces of platinum. It was our job to figure out if there was any other surface visual display of this. So I did this big GIS mapping project. We mapped out the whole thing, and it was really interesting, but for me, mapping just wasn't for what I wanted to do. The next January, so January 2010, I was hired on full-time to be their office manager, and I also still did some GIS. I started to do some human resources, so I was hiring on staff. I was doing all the office administration, so invoicing and dealing with some of that. And then now we're starting to deal with consultation, stakeholder issues. An exploration company is something that has to take on all sorts of things. We're a business, but we're also a business that's responsible. So now I'm in this role where I'm the community liaison / office manager, but I'm leaving Thunder Bay. I've got a new job, so I'm sorry. But anyways, Magma Metals is a company that's in Thunder Bay, and I don't know how many of you know about it, but they were nice enough to me to let me grow. And I think for teachers and for employers or for students is that you want to work with a company that recognizes your potential and, like John Hatton says, is find the right fit, right? Find the right fit for you. Don't get into a job just because it pays well, because this industry pays really well, but you're going to be miserable if you're not doing something that you're truly passionate about. So figure that out, and don't just be driven by the money. So I'm not going to talk about the actual stages of mining because we went through that, but I'll just give you a quick idea of Magma Metals. We're actually an Australian mining company. We're based out of Perth. We have our CEO, our CFO, and our project development manager, metallurgist. 3 people in a Perth office who run our company, and they raise all of our capital. We have a market capital of about $20 million. We're not a very big company, but it is sufficient enough to run this project that we have here in Thunder Bay. We found the major find, the TBN Thunder Bay North project, about 45 kilometers northeast of Thunder Bay in 2007. And since then, we've been doing further resource drilling to try and define the extensivity of the project. We have an office at 1004 Alloy Drive here in Thunder Bay. And there's a team of geologists, a geophysicist, and myself. I'm the only woman in the company, with the exception of the metallurgist, project development manager in Australia, my boss Jennifer Abels, who's there, who I have to have meetings with at 9 p.m. just so that we can talk, which is always an interesting thing. So just to give you an idea of where we are, the Magma Exploration Office is in Thunder Bay, but the kind of exploration that we're doing is called, it's in the Mid-Continent Rift Zone. So just to be a geology nerd for a second, 1 billion years ago, this part of the world was trying to separate apart. The reason why we have those big diabase sills, so these big mountains around us, nor'westers, is actually because this part of the world was trying to separate apart. This was rift separation where magma came up and formed these big, long magma sills, right? So what we're trying to find is mineralized magma as a result of this rift separation 1 billion years ago. It's called Keweenawen magma. And it's very, very particular, it's very strange, and it's a whole new camp that's ignited a whole rush of platinum exploration. Magma Metals was the first find of this type. You have lactazil, which is kind of similar, but they're more rich in palladium, whereas we're more rich in platinum. Platinum is a whole new world of exploration, so magma started that. So to give you an idea of the extensivity of the project, or of the exploration that we do, here is our main project. This is Thunder Bay North, so look at how close we are to Thunder Bay. We have 800 claims. We also have claims in Quetico East, which is over by Geraldton. We're trying to figure out if we have any analogous deposits while we're still looking, right? But we go all the way up to Lake Nipigon, and we have actual claims down by the border, but we're very much a local company. The Ring of Fire is a thing that's been talked about a lot, and our company said, well, why don't we go take a look at PGs up in the Ring of Fire? The problem with it is that it's incredibly expensive, and it's very logistically challenging, as you can attest to, right? If you're gonna fly a helicopter up into these areas that are muskeg swamps, it's gonna cost you a whole lot of money. For our company, it costs us about $100 per meter to drill, right? Is that a right approximation? So I'm seeing invoices come in for one drill hole costs you $75,000, okay? A drilling program might cost you $1 million. And this is just local, it's really easy. We have road access to our projects. It's cheap, but up there it's big business, and that requires a lot of capital. Mining exploration relies on capital. This is the thing we have to remember. We are not for profit. We are all entirely driven by the Toronto Stock Exchange, which is down in Bay Street, which is also the hub of exploration in North America, arguably the world. Anyways, I won't go into details too much about the geology, but basically we've been doing a whole lot of resource definition to try to see the extensivity of our project. Basically, to date, we have 720,000 ounces of platinum, and we're trying to refine this. We have to go through 43101 standards, which basically the stock exchange says you must abide by these rules and be very technical with the way that you prove the size of your deposit. This is very important in light of BRIACs, right? You have to state everything that you do. So we think we have more, but that's not really the whole story. We're trying to prove that, right? It's all about proving the resource that you have. There's timing. To give you an idea, if we were to go into production, it probably would be around 2016, but there's all sorts of permitting that will be required between then. And also, just to talk about the things that are involved in the process of exploration, capital raising, doing feasibility studies, doing scoping studies, environmental studies, Aboriginal and community relations, environmental baseline studies, permitting, construction. These are all different aspects of exploration that all require jobs and employment. And they all occur at different stages, which Barb talked about. So I can go and do an overview of mining, but I'll be reinventing the wheel. But I think just one thing to comment on, and something that I've just personally been very interested in, as John was talking about too, is the importance of corporate social responsibility. And sometimes that kind of has a bad term about it. It's so important that we engage not just with First Nations, but just with our community, is letting people know what's going on and opening that dialogue, and not having that kind of closure between mining companies and the community. This is what's going to drive our economy. The government of, Ontario, right, is facing a huge amount of debt. What is going to bring Ontario out of debt? Arguably exploration and mining? Possibly. We have to find a way to allow for proper relationships to go forward, right? This is a big problem. Look at KI, right? We have to think about how we're going to engage these communities in ways that their issues are addressed and dealt with, so that we can move forward as a province. So I could talk about prospecting, but all of these stages, but we kind of already went there. Just to give you an idea, this is in development and construction. This is a 3D model of our deposit. So we have a database and 3D modeling geologist who works in our office, who builds a model, and it's a pretty interesting job to be in. GIS modeling is a very interesting realm if you're willing to sit in front of a computer all day. But just again, talking about the permits that are required, it's not just geology and and drilling. It's also being environmental scientists. That's such an important part of this, the environmental and social aspect. Teachers, tell your students, even if you don't like science, get your science credits, get your math credits. I went back for my geology degree, and I wasn't a strong math and science student in high school, but I had to fight for it when I went back for geology, and it was the best thing I did. But, you know, what do you know when you're 16, right? Yeah, right. You pay for it eventually, and you go back and you do it, and then... Anyways, I think we got an idea of what the stages are, but this is an extensivity of a project in production. This is what a tailings pond looks like. These are really big projects. Hydrogeology. You guys want a good job? Go be a hydrogeologist. They're in huge demand. It's such an important part of mining. And also, just because a mine closes doesn't mean that the game is over, especially now considering regulations. It is incredibly important that we are all stewards to the land and that we maintain our commitments to the land well after. DST and other companies play, locally, a big role in baseline and economic studies and closure plans. True Grit Consulting. There's all these companies that are coming up in Thunder Bay that are taking care of doing baseline, so figuring out what happens before a mine comes in and also after closure. So all these businesses are popping up, right, as a result of exploration that weren't here 10 years ago. It's really interesting times to see economic development in Thunder Bay as a result of exploration. So just to give you an idea of where we're at right now in Ontario, 10 operating gold mines, 7 base metal mines, and 1 PGM mine. This will change with Osisko, and let's talk about Bending Lake iron ore. Just really locally, Rainy River Resources. These are really fantastic projects that may come into production. And also, with the price of gold being so high, there's lots of exploration that's being done on projects that wasn't done 15 years ago. As long as the gold price stays high, we're going to be looking at old projects that were closed, and there could be new mines opening as a result of that. So I won't beat a dead horse. 1 in 10,000 prospects turns into a mine, but that's important to press. Is that exploration is like the equivalent of research and development. Without research and development, you're not going to be able to find that find. You need to be able to explore. But the responsibility of the exploration company is to do it in an environmentally and socially responsible manner. That is our duty. So in Ontario, mining industry human resources has done a fantastic job of providing up-to-date statistics, but just to give you an idea, 77,000 jobs are going to be required in this industry. We have an aging workforce, especially in mining. It's a big problem. A lot of our like senior managers are retiring. So how are we going to replace these people? This is going to require us replacing these jobs well in advance. So we need to get students, 14, 15, we need to get them engaged in this industry and show them that this is a good thing for them to get into, so that we can replace these people that are aging and moving out of our industry. So again, these are the kind of jobs that you can get in exploration and in development. And in closing, I just want to say that if you're curious about it, the best thing that you can tell your students to do is go get practical experience. Don't just sit in a classroom. I think it's really important for people to do co-ops and go out and knock on some doors and just go talk to these exploration companies. We would love to have people, young students who are engaged, just come in and we'll show you everything. We'll go show you our core yard. We'll take you out there, because how are you going to know what you want to do if you've been in school for 8 years and you finish your university degree and you don't have any experience? Go get your experience, and I promise you that employers will take you in with open hands. In closing, one other thing is we're looking for an environmental intern. So if somebody wants to, any students, if you want to come talk, I'm looking at hiring somebody for 8 weeks, just in the summer, to work with DST to do further baseline studies. That's about all we're hiring for right now. We're kind of a quiet project, and we're actually in the process of a takeover bid, which is really interesting. This is exploration. Anyways, thank you, and I guess if you have any questions, we'll talk about it with the panel.
Suzanne, that's great. Barbara, first Barbara, I'll call Barb and Barbara. How's that? Is there anything you'd like to say? We have a few minutes. Anything else? Okay. Are there any questions? Do we have any questions?
Okay, with the drilling industry, getting a guy that's in his 50s and not in good shape, he won't last. And I don't discriminate or anything like that, but I like to get the younger ones, without an attitude though, the ones that don't know everything. And I like to get them young because it's really hard. Like when I see the guys, when they first start, their wrists kill them. So I go get preparation H. Where's Mel? A535, and we rub it on their wrist, because they're constantly going like this with the rods, putting them together, and they're in pain. It takes them about a week to a week and a half to get rid of that pain, and then they build the muscle. So yeah, we like to get them younger. I've taken guys, actually I have a guy that was in his late 40s, and he begged me for a job because he got out of jail. And he was really bad. And I don't want this, I want nothing to do with it. And I hired him, I gave him a chance because I was stuck. And he's awesome, and he started drilling just this year. So he's doing a great job. So sometimes I could be wrong.
Sorry.
Go ahead, you go ahead.
Again, concurrent. I think what you'll see is a similarity in all our messages, and that's why Suzanne said, like, we all have the same slides, because it's a very clear message. But what I feel, and again, we're trying to look at when people come to us and say, I want to take whatever program, it's clearly, like I said, it's right person for the right job. You better know what you're getting into, and that's the thing. And again, age is not always a criteria or determinant. We talk a lot with Northern College. They have a lot more experience in this than us. They run a great drilling program in Kirkland Lake, and they've actually inserted a fitness component into their drilling program, which sounds goofy, but it's about, just basic stretching, because again, what's worse than having someone on WSIB with a back injury? So it's all about taking care of yourself. And again, the old school was, drink hard, play hard. You don't see that a lot anymore. It's changing a bit. There still is that, but you have to look at it. You look at the program that Gold Core Muscle White has. They have 2 nurses on staff. They have actively seeking smoking cessation programs, dietary, weight loss, because they want people to be healthy. And again, to do these jobs, you can't do it if you're unfit, if it's a physical job. So all the things that Barb said is correct, but getting back to your question, we've had older workers come in, you've got second career grants. Sometimes what the older people lack in physical ability, they gain in common sense. It's an old guy saying that, but you know, it's a combination. But again, bottom line, make sure they know what the job is, no matter what it is, whether it be some of the stuff that Suzanne says, it's all there. So, thank you.
And further to that, I just want to say that Suzanne's story is a classic example of someone who kind of fell into the industry. It's really exciting to have you all here tonight because you can influence students. I used to be the student liaison person for PDAC, and I would ask people, the geology and geoscience students, why did you get into geology? And they would all tell me the same story. I went into another program. I took the first year geology course. I fell in love with it, and I'm so happy because it's changed my life, and I'm off and running. And Suzanne is a classic example of that you kind of fell into, even though in your family you were fortunate enough to have someone who was already part of the business. So the sooner, the industry feels very strongly that the sooner that you can start to talk about this industry and the incredible breadth of opportunity here and the differences from one career to the next, the better it is, because then they actually start to think, maybe that's a real possibility for me.
Go ahead, Darryl.
It's my boyfriend's an engineer, and we're going to work in mining in Sudbury. Actually, I'm working for the Ministry of Northern Development of Mines. So I don't think I'll be gone for very long. I'll be back in Thunder Bay. It'll be.
A picture of you, Harold, you wouldn't ask any tough questions, but Common Core is one of, I think, very misunderstood by most people. Common Core, there are numerous certifications in Common Core. There's underground hard rock, underground soft rock, underground drilling, surface drilling, etc. And in order to do most of that training, we have to have, you do the theory portion, but also there's a practical portion that has to be done in an underground, in the case of underground hard rock miner, in an underground mine. We have ran some courses in consultation or in cooperation with Barrick and Marathon, but again, the purpose of those mines, first of all, it's dangerous, and there's liability issues and production issues. So we'd love to be able to have a program, but Common Core is not, I mean, that's one, I think one small, although we've talked about the many jobs in mining, Common Core is a part. A lot of mines, including I think North American Palladium, that we have a representative here tonight, do that when they hire people. I think what they're looking for more, and this is maybe me just trying to get out of the question, is other skills. And then they will teach you the Common Core. But if you're a tradesperson, or Suzanne mentioned all the environmental things, so that's a bit of an avoiding the question, but Common Core is not the only answer. The surface diamond drilling is a Common Core certification that we have. And it's still, I think the ministry and you know, Deb, you're here as well, so I refer to that. I think they're looking at some modifications to it, and maybe you might want to speak on that later. Or so they're trying to improve it. But Common Core is not the only answer, it's one, and we are certainly trying to work with the ministry and with companies to try to improve it and offer more opportunities, but it's not an easy go. I don't know if that's fair.
What I've noticed, Harold, was on it. For the the drilling, in order for me to hire a guy, he has to have the first 5 modules of the Common Core before he can even go near a drill. And the reason why that happens is because it is dangerous. The first 5 modules are just like an introduction. And drill helpers, because they're not drillers, it's like, I would say it's an apprenticeship. It's not classified as one, but I think it should be, because the only way you can become a driller is to be a helper. There's no other way. So there's no course to be a driller. You just work your way up. So you go the first 5 modules, and as you learn more stuff on the drills, you get more modules. But I have a year before I can give them all their modules for the helper course. Or I get them from him.
Yeah, also, you know, there's this sign-off procedure. It's very much, again, like Barb said, very clearly, it's like an apprenticeship, and we can train them, but the sign-off, it has to be a company sign-off by that, whether it be underground or surface or whatever. So I think we're working on it. As you know, Cambrian College through NORCAT in Sudbury offers a Common Core Underground, which, you know, there's been mixed reviews of that program, because what the mining companies really want is someone with hands-on, and so the more practical you get is better. So I think you're going to see it improve again as the demand comes up, because we cannot, the way it's set up now, you can't supply the demand that is coming up, especially if a mine opens. And you know, you mentioned the Rainy River resource site down near Rainy River, Osisco. Those are probably more imminent than the Ring of Fire stuff. Rubicon in Red Lake is another one that's coming on stream probably next year as a mine, plus the expansions at North American Palladium, also White and Red Lake. So we can't, right now the way the system is, we can't supply it. So Harold, good question, we're working on it, but I don't have an answer right now.
Thank you. Yes.
I know. That's why we're here. They would have to be 18 years and over. I think that's the rules. See, and this is the big problem. I was talking to somebody in regards to the Common Core, just giving them an idea. I'm a big advocate. I came from nursing, and I'm in mining right now, and I love the industry, and I think it's a great industry with the worst rap ever. We're not the bad guys. We employ people. We care about the environment, and we're a great bunch of people. Now I'm going to the Dominican, the little town that we're working near. There's a lot of kids that can't go to school because they need a uniform. So we're providing uniforms for those kids so they have an education. And that's what we do. But we don't go and publicize it. We just do what we have to do because it's the right thing to do. I need helpers all the time. I go through guys all the time because it's not for everybody. And that's what I keep stressing, that this job isn't for everybody. I have no problems going to the schools. I did it. I lived in Montreal, and my kids showed me their geography book, and there was 2 pages on mining. Well, I got mad, and I said, this is crazy, because this is what drives our country, and we're famous for it, and there's 2 pages. So how is anybody going to know what's out there? So I think we need to go into the schools. And I have no problems. Anybody wants me to go to your school and talk about diamond drilling, I will, because those are the kids that need to know what's out there. And I think it should be part of the curriculum.
Mining Matters is supported by industry. Industry recognizing that, just as you said, marketability is going to be the key to this. So Mining Matters is, what we do is we are actually asked by the Ministry of Education to provide materials that are in line with the Ontario curriculum. So part of what I do during the winter months and the spring is I travel to communities and to schools, and I run 2-hour workshops for teachers so they feel comfortable with that whole component. In the kit there is rocks and minerals and all the teaching resources and lesson plans so that those teachers who are not comfortable teaching science will be able to do it with confidence and up-to-date materials. But your role is really, really important, because now you having come and you understand the importance of this, both in terms of what it means for the future for your students, you'll be able to talk to your colleagues. And if you want us to come and present to you, we're happy to do that. Anya and Matt, the development within the actual industry, they've come up, they work for Outland. And what Outland did with the First Nation Natural Resources Youth Employment Program, they provided co-op credits for their Aboriginal youth that attended in the summer months. All these things are out of the box thinking. I'm going to be going to Fort Hope for 2 weeks to take their kids to an island and teach their kids in outdoor education, because that's the way they're going to learn the best. So these kinds of programs, out of the box thinking about how do we make this accessible, available, that's what's happening. And the industry is 100% behind this. Mines open up their doors to allow us to go on and we, you know, talk about the safety issues, which is a great learning opportunity. But for them to let us come and see their operation is a very huge privilege. So that's the kind of educational programs that we want to support.
Another thing is what's up with high school? You got chemistry, you've got physics, you got biology. But how big is your geology in science? Do you even, right? Do you have that in your curriculum? So what do we do here? How do we develop a curriculum that actually talks about earth sciences? How am I going to choose a credit in earth sciences at the university level if I have no context of it in high school? We have to get a grip, that's what I think, because I didn't know what it was until I went to university. So as teachers, is this our responsibility to say, hey, we've got this ring of fire thing going on here, why aren't we teaching our students in high school about this? So how do we as a collective, industry and government and educators make this happen? So let's learn geology at grade 6 level. Like, I'm on the board of directors of Northwest Ontario Prospectors Association. Dr. Mary Louise Hill is a professor at Lakehead, right? She's on the board with me, and she's all about education and advocacy, and she's saying asking the same question. Where is it at the grade 6 level, at the grade 8 level? Teachers, can you tell me, are you teaching geology in high school?
There's a lot of jobs coming up. You are.
Right. So how much time do you spend in your curriculum? And in what course? Are you teaching it in chemistry or what? Right. Do you know how much geochemistry I had to study at the university level, which was complex chemistry? And that's chemistry. So why aren't we using applied methods in our teaching in chemistry at the OAC grade 12 level? That's what I think. If I were to be a teacher right now, I would be using geochemistry as an example of how we apply these ideas, right? Use them and set them up for employment, and be more practical with the way that you're teaching these ideas, because that will set them towards that path of, oh wait, I can use this in mining, I can use this in very applied ways.
Just a matter of time, because we want to get you out of here on time as we did. I want to thank the panel very much. It's just getting exciting and we're going to go on, so thank you. I really like the passion. But I just want to make a comment. This is really good, but most of the stuff we've been talking about is the prospecting, or the up front, and you saw our cycle there. We have the mines, and then we have the brownfielding. So there's a whole other avenues to do it. So one of the things I say is, yes, 18 to go there, but we have a wonderful industries here. We have warehouses, we have whole other people. I think for every mining job, there's almost 3 other jobs that need to support that one job in mining. So you'll find them in the community starting up. Look for those ones. It's a way to do it. I do some work with, we have, I think, 4 mining labs in town. Really great stuff. Rio Tinto, ACT Labs, you know, it's really neat to see the diamonds. I do some work coaching and consulting with them. The diamonds, they don't let me take any home, but it's really neat to see how they do that kind of stuff. And I was going to ask you a question, but our panelists will be here during our discussion, our break, and through our discussion. So if you have any more questions, please take a couple of minutes to talk to them. They're going to stay just so you can do that and to be a resource, because this information and these concerns that we're just talking about, we need you to put them down on paper so we can take it forward into the information that we pass forward, that we pass on to the college, we pass on to the Ministry of Training, to all the ministers in the provincial or federal government. So that's our role as a board. So please make sure we capture these in some of our things. And if it's not there, directly to Madge Richards. I'd like to, Madge, could you just stand up? Madge Richards is our executive director. She just got off of the plane doing a presentation down east and about mining, for our mining report. So Madge will be with us a little now and do the close up for us. So if there's nothing else, any other thing, we'll take a 10-minute break. And I see you might have to fight over some of the goodies. It's getting a little sparse back there. But I think the coffee was replaced. Let's give it 10 minutes, get back here at just before quarter after.